everyone. How's it going? I'm just gonna wait to see if we have anyone tuning in live, and otherwise I will just top right on in. Happy Wednesday to you. As you see, I'm taking it easy today in my loungewear, which is my preference. Pregnant or not, I prefer loungewear. Gorgeous day. The wind though, huh? The wind is crazy. All right, well, I'm just gonna start right on in because we're right at 2. And I just got a few questions this week, and one was a follow-up from last week's revolving around my schedule. What does my daily self-care schedule look like? And actually last week it was asking about my morning schedule, and this week it was, well, it was a question that was kind of tagging along to that, and it was what was my nighttime schedule. And it's funny when you kind of go off the cuff, which is typically how I do these. I just kind of stream of consciousness answer questions for folks. And so when I was talking about my morning routine last week, I totally forgot about something that I do every day, which was so funny. But I think that's the beauty of when you are doing self-care for a good long time. It just becomes like brushing your teeth. It's almost not worth mentioning, because it's like, well, yeah, obviously I brush my teeth. And so you kind of forget about it. And I wanted to encourage you guys, if you are someone who's been trying to instill a little bit more self-care or a different routine, especially if you're at home and you're not working presently and you have that ability to, and this is not necessarily a very motivating time. This is a very challenging time for all of us in different ways. So certainly no pressure if you're not feeling inspired to do so. But for those of you who are, just pick one thing at a time to incorporate. It could be as simple as drinking more water. And the more that you can practice this one act, the easier it becomes, and the less you have to think about doing it. And it just becomes, a regular routine. And then you don't think about it anymore, just like, again, brushing your teeth or taking a shower. It's not something you have to make yourself do. You just do it. So actually getting to the question, which is, what is my nighttime routine? So obviously things are different. I mentioned in my last week how my self-care has changed significantly because I am now pregnant, and talk about, for me anyways, dissolving ambition. It has definitely dissolved a lot of ambition in the ways I usually have it. So I've slowed down quite a bit, and so some of my self-care has changed in a lot of ways. But typically speaking, my self-care routine at night, for the first thing, is really getting to bed at a decent hour, and this really hasn't changed so much. And I talked about the importance of getting up at a certain hour last week for the morning side. Well, it's the same on the flip side. So if you're someone who has insomnia or struggles with sleep issues already, you really don't want to be staying awake past 10:30 at night. I know this is a bummer for a lot of folks, especially if you have a challenging schedule, but maybe you don't right now. Maybe you have that ability, that capacity to kind of slowly shift your routine in the opposite direction. And the reason why getting to bed, and I'm talking about in bed, eyes shut, around 10:30, 10:45 latest, is because this is the time where our inner fire, our inner sort of drive wakes back up. So around it's really like, it starts to rev up around 10:30, 11 o'clock is when we start to begin to get our second wind, and we'll want to stay up for one last episode of whatever we're watching, or answer that one email, or whatever it might be. And so if we can get ourselves into bed before that fire hits, then we'll sleep much better, because the fire, this is Ayurvedic principles here. The thing with Ayurveda and that Pitta energy, which is the fire energy, is that it is made to be stimulating, but on the flip side, at night, it's meant to be for detoxifying our bodies and for rejuvenating our bodies and kind of doing all the hard work of, the digestion of dinner and the clearing of waste products and kind of getting ready for that first bowel movement in the morning. This is all happening when our eyes are shut and we're in dreamland. And so if we are kind of infiltrating that timeline by staying up and having another bowl of popcorn and, watching the rest of Breaking Bad or whatever it is that you're watching or not watching, maybe it's a chapter book, we are making it harder on our bodies to fall asleep and to go through that process of Pitta hour, which is really from 10, actually, again, I keep saying 10, but it's really building up till 12 to 2 in the morning is when the maximum sort of fire energy is going on to detox, to reset, to really get us ready for the next day. So this is why if you're going to bed later, you're awake. You're like, I can't fall asleep. I'm feeling very energized right now because you're in the Pitta time. So my first thing that I do is I always get to bed before 11, and because I've been napping a little bit more in the day, I have been going to bed a bit later, so 10:30 is actually really late for me. I'm usually in bed way before then. So 10:30, quarter of 11. So that's a really important piece. A second piece is drinking tea before you go to bed. This could be any kind of tea, but again, if you're an insomniac or if you're someone who kind of has a revved up nervous system, some of the really beautiful, gentle nervine herbs, we have chamomile, we have lemon balm, we have oat tops and nettle, and these all blend well together. Hey guys, anyone who's watching, feel free to throw in a question at any point if you have one. Passion flower if you have a really racing mind at night. And of course, you can find really nice blends already pre-blended for you from yogi tea or traditional medicinals at the grocery store. Maybe you go to your favorite health food store or, call ahead and ask what they have. And of course, we're doing curbside pickup for a lot of shops still. But regardless, some sort of tea. And you want to do this really, I would say, a couple hours before you're going to go to bed, only because you're going to have to pee. And so peeing, of course, disrupts the sleep cycle quite a bit. The other piece that I'm not 100% doing as much as I would be doing for my nightly routine is the foot abhyanga, which is basically foot massage, just a massage for your foot. It's a self-care practice, again, from Ayurveda. I do follow it pretty regularly. I think it makes a lot of sense for folks. And it's just taking whatever massage oil or lotion or whatever you have on hand and just massaging the soles, the bottoms of your feet. And again, this is a time that you can incorporate your favorite essential oil, again, for relaxing, lavender or bergamot or marjoram. And of course, the bottoms of our feet have the largest pores, so we really soak everything up and it goes right into your bloodstream more readily. But just the act of giving yourself a little foot rub before going to bed really gets you in the mindset of, okay, it's time to rest. It's time to kind of go inward and let go of the day as well. What else can I say about my nighttime self-care? I definitely... if I've had a more stressed day or there's a lot on my mind where, the wheels won't stop turning, sometimes I'll pull out my journal and I'll just start journaling because, it's important to have an outlet for whatever's going on up here because if it stays in there, it's going to just keep us up, right? So it might still torture us a little bit, but when you get it on paper, it's kind of like you're putting it aside. Like, okay, these things happened or this is still bothering me. But I'm going to put it on paper. I'm just going to put it off to the side because I can't do anything about them now. I'm going to bed. And that's the best thing that I can do for myself. So that's a really helpful practice for just ending the day. One last thing that I do is some sort of energy clearing, and that could be singing bowl, that could be a rattle, that could be smudge, burning herbs, that could be just even a visualization of just kind of sweeping, or actually physically sweeping, like again with the singing bowl, or even like a selenite wand, those beautiful, it's usually they come in like long white, I think they're very mineral rich, but it's like they're long crystal wands that are like pure white, and they're gorgeous. Selenite is good for clearing as well, but it's basically just sloughing off the day and being done with it, being like, okay, I'm just releasing what's not serving me, I'm releasing with whatever happened today, I'm done with it, grounding it, I'm clearing it from myself, and it's time to rest. And a lot of these things are just the intention behind it. Intention is so important when you know, we want to close the door for the day. There's no need to drag it with us, right? That's not really helpful for a restful night's sleep, and it's really not helpful for starting the day fresh in the morning either. So those are sort of the basic principles of my nighttime self-care routine. And like I said, for those of you who are just trying to dabble in new routines or just new self-care practices right now, just take one thing at a time and see if it jives with you, and stick to it for like a week, to the point where either it's jiving with you and you're like, yeah, this works, I love it, it makes me feel so much better, or if it's like, this is not really doing anything for me, it's not really a good fit, letting it go. But either way, you want to get to the point where you've chosen something that really suits you, and it just becomes a regular habit, and then it's not like effortful anymore. It's not like, oh, I have to do my self-care. It's like, oh, I have to do that after I brush my teeth. Like, it's just a thing that you do. So that is that. All right, so any questions coming up, again, please feel free to just post them at any time during our little chat. I had a couple other questions here before I see if there's any other questions coming from the live folks. One is around, what is the best way to dry herbs? I know a lot of you guys are focusing in on your gardening, which is so nice, especially if you have extra time right now with this pandemic. And so what are the best ways to dry herbs? So there's a few different ways, and it really, a lot of it depends on the herb. So I'll start with mugwort, okay? So I'm not saying that everyone's going to be using mugwort. I want to answer Mikhail's question first, though, because it was pertinent to what I was just talking about. Yes. So Mikhail, great question. It depends. So, right now, it's like, it'd be like right before I hop into bed, but on a regular day, you know, if I've been seeing clients or I'm teaching a class, I tend to do it at the end of like my work day, which is usually around 5 or 6, for seeing people, and I'll do it then with a little meditation or breath work, just to kind of just set it aside. But you can do it really anytime that feels good for your schedule at night, but it's when, you know, you're just kind of drawing the line across like your day, like, all right, I'm done with work, I'm done with that, coming back to my own self-care and like home mode. And part of that for me is because I work from home. Anyways, so it's kind of like a dividing line between when my day is done for the work stuff. But you could certainly do it closer to just right before bed, which is a really excellent time too. So whatever feels best to you. Okay, so drying herbs. So there's a few different ones. So I was saying mugwort. Mugwort is an herb I love to use in teas and incense. It's a moon herb. It's a ladies' reproductive herb, not when you're pregnant, but before and after. It's great for smudging. It's great for dream time. Lots of uses for mugwort. I won't go into too much of that more unless anyone's curious. But it really doesn't do well dried in bundles. So one way you can dry your herbs is, especially if it's, you know, there's a good amount of it, you can, you know, you want at least 6 to 12 inches of, you're welcome, Mikhail, of herbs to actually harvest. And you want there to be a good amount of stem, if you can, like, you know, like something like lemon balm, for instance, you might have to like pull some of the leaves off so that you have something to wrap it. So basically you get a small bundle, you wrap it with elastic band, and then you hang it upside down in a dark, cool place, preferably, low humidity place. And actually lemon balm does pretty good dried that way. But mugwort, however, it just doesn't do well. It kind of turns like, it loses its color. It almost turns like yellowish gray, and it doesn't do so well. So for herbs that are actually basil, like culinary basil is the same way, where it doesn't dry well, just hung up upside down. And that's just like the old school way of doing it, which is fine for a lot of herbs. So you have to, if anyone has a particular herb they're thinking of in their minds, feel free to post it. But in the general sense, that's the easiest way. It does take a little bit longer depending on the climate. Sometimes basements can get muggy, so that's not always on your side for drying herbs. The second way I like to dry herbs, though, that works for herbs that are sensitive to, just hang drying, is a dehydrator. It's a really great way. You can get them super cheap. And you just put it on low, I'm trying to think of how low, under 100 degrees, obviously. I want to say like between 70 and 90 on the little dial Fahrenheit. And it works really, and it doesn't take long. It's usually like, 8 to 12 hours, I would say, depending on how juicy the herb is. And it works really well. You always want to make sure you can retain the color of your herbs and the aromatics of your herbs. And so it's taste, flavor, and smell. Those are how you can tell the vibrancy and energy. The medicine is still good in the plants. So if you have dried something that looks like, I feel like the color changed, or it doesn't look quite as good, give it a taste, see how it tastes. If it smells, some herbs aren't super aromatic, but there's still this green sort of, scent to it. Check it out that way. Third way that I like to dry herbs, and this is actually great for basil in particular, although the dehydrator would work fine for basil, is just using your car. So getting a big brown paper bag and putting some herb in there, and you don't want to overstuff it because there needs to be some air in between. And I usually do bundle it like we would do for hang drying an herb. And again, these bundles don't want to be too thick because you need there to be air to circulate through them. But bundle your herb, put it in a bag, roll it up, like I even staple it shut. And then this works on hot days. So when it's really hot out and it's like your car turns into an oven, right? Especially in the middle of the winter, middle of the summer, it's a little oven. So it literally just kind of dries your herbs on slow-mo, low temp, in the bag, helps to absorb the moisture out. It draws it out of the plant. So I find that works really well. Again, it depends on how juicy the herb is, how long it will take. But you kind of just keep checking on it. Usually if you have a good full day of direct sun on your car, usually that's all it takes. This is my favorite way to, if you make smudge bundles, it's a good way to dry those as well. So hang drying, dehydrator, or using your car as a solar dehydrator. So those are my favorite ways. And again, you have to play around with different herbs because not every herb, like I would say violet leaf, plantain, mugwort, basil, let's see, some other sensitive plants that just don't do super well. Those are the 4 that I can think of off the top of my head that just don't do great dried normally by hanging. So dehydrator or the car is the best one for that. All right. Okay, moving on to the third question, which is, it's actually, since most people know that I'm pregnant now, I've been getting questions around what I've been doing for herbs during pregnancy, and what herbs are considered safe. Now I will say, I like to preface this, that it's always important to follow your practitioner, your doctor's suggestions, listen to them, listen to their guidelines. You have to feel good about making your own choices though as well, so be empowered in what you're learning, but I'm just sharing with you what is comfortable for me and what I have learned through my practice. There's not a lot of money behind herbs and herb safety and herb, double-blind independent studies for herbs, unfortunately. So that means, a lot of the herbal information that we have is from tradition, from the wise women way is really what it's called, and from hundreds of years of use, which is not to say it should be dismissed. I absolutely follow a lot of those. But I think in modern day, we like the science to back these things up. And it's not that the science can't, it's just that it's not really available. Certainly elderberry, and there's studies on comfrey, and there's studies on St. John's wort. There's certain herbs that have those double-blind studies, but a lot of them, it's just not there. The interest, not the interest, but the money is not there. It's expensive to get these tests done, and it's very challenging to find an independent company to do it and to back it. So with that being said, I'm going to share with you what I've been doing, and some of it is backed by science and some of it is not, but it's what I feel is comfortable for me. So red raspberry leaf is a really important herb for women in general, and is completely safe through all of pregnancy. And you'll find, again, if you go on like WebMD, or if you're Googling any herb, you're going to find lots of different information there. So if you're somebody who's pregnant or just concerned, you really have to trust practitioners, trained herbalists who know what they're doing and know what they're talking about, and so they can give you more information. And I will say, like NDs and MDs, even if they have herbal training, they're not allowed to promote herbs that have not been scientifically backed. That's just another thing. So even if they're saying to veer on the side of caution, it's because they cannot legally encourage you to take an herb that they don't have, science to back them up and the research to back them up, which I totally understand. But you can read 100 different herb books on how magical red raspberry leaf is. So why? So it's a tonic, it's a tonifying herb, it's astringing, and it's incredibly mineral rich with calcium, magnesium, I believe there's a good amount of iron in there, and it's just helps to strengthen the uterus and get it ready basically for labor. And that doesn't mean it's inducing cramping or it's inducing muscle spasms. It's actually just toning and strengthening, which is obviously how the baby gets out, right? Unless you're doing a C-section, which is totally different, but it's still nice to keep the uterus toned. So really helpful, especially closer towards like if you're in your third trimester, because that is when you really want the uterus to really get a workout and all the muscles to be really super strong, so that if you're having a vaginal birth, the muscles can push baby out properly and really, induce those really crazy contractions, which help us to push baby out. So red raspberry, it's toning, it's nourishing, it's mineral rich. It helps to sustain energy for the mom through pregnancy as well. Oat tops is another herb, and I combine all these herbs we're talking about. I would just put them in one tea blend. So red raspberry leaf, oat tops. I do oat tops because it's a nervine. It's a very nourishing nervous system herb, and it helps exhaustion. It helps depletion when you're just kind of like, you've given a lot and you don't have a lot to go on. It helps to kind of just build you back up. It helps sleeping. It helps general stress support. And it just, again, it's all about when you feel like you're kind of just like a shriveled up balloon, like all the air is going out of you and you're just like, oh man, I'm just so pooped. Oat tops and milky oat tops are the best. You can do the oat straw as well, but it doesn't have quite as much medicine in it. So that's the second herb I like to take. Third, of course, you're not going to be surprised if you've followed me for any amount of time, is nettle. So nettle is, again, it's the powerhouse of nutrition and iron and protein, and it's so rich in chlorophyll. So chlorophyll is so cleansing to the body. It's so energizing. It's so just supportive and nutritive. So it's different in the sense that it's not necessarily for depletion, although it works really well hand in hand with oat tops, but it basically just revitalizes your body. It's like taking a multivitamin, and it is tonifying, it is astringing, so it works hand in hand with red raspberry to tone and strengthen the tissues. It's gentle, a gentle, not stimulant, but supporter for digestion and liver support. And even just thinking about all the blood rushing through a woman's body when she's pregnant, and all, you know, the susceptibility to varicosities and just a weaker cardiovascular system because of all the extra blood. So nettle helps to tone the tissues in that regard as well. So that is my tea blend. Sometimes I'll throw lemon balm in there, and that's because lemon balm is just like a really lovely anti-anxiety and just like mood lifter. It's good for depression too. You know, so a lot of women experience heavy-heartedness and, you know, just kind of heavy mind during all of pregnancy. So it's really lovely, and it's just it's an antiviral, antimicrobial. It tastes delicious. I just really love it. So sometimes I'll throw lemon balm in there, and sometimes, excuse me, I won't. So that's my tea blend. The other stuff that I've been taking, of course, prenatal. I've also been taking fish oil. So omega-3s and cod liver oil are hugely important, specifically for the development of your baby, particularly brain function, etc., but also for postpartum support. So even though I'm not postpartum yet, it's really important to start taking these supplements now, because it helps to balance out the hormones through the essential fatty acids and the DHA. It's vital. And really, honestly, because I'm vegetarian, I flip-flop between the cod liver oil and the omega-3 because I'm not getting a ton of vitamin A as well. So that's something that I've been doing. But for anyone, whether you eat fish or not, omega-3 is so valuable, so important. It doesn't matter how much salmon or cod or sardines you eat a week, your body is not getting enough. Unfortunately, it's just, we can't eat enough to balance out the omega-6 and 9s that we get within our diet, which typically come from nuts and seeds and oils and things like that. And in order for the essential fatty acids to balance out, we need them to, you know, that y'all have to kind of be level. So if omega-3 is way down here and the 6 and the 9 are up here, they have a harder time dealing with imbalance. And chronic inflammation is a big component of the valuable area of taking omegas, especially omega-3. But mood, heart, weight loss even, just general body function, trauma repair, like nerve damage. There's so many benefits, but particularly for pregnancy, this is all about postpartum and baby development. So taking it during and then all the way through postpartum and really forevermore. I mean, I've always taken omega-3. Like I said, I added cod liver oil, flip-flop every day to do that. So really that's all I've been taking. I'm trying to think. I'll probably be changing things up a little bit as I get closer to my due date to help induce naturally. But otherwise, I'm going to keep it to the regular old oldies but goodies, the nettle, the raspberry, the O-tops, to help me coast on through. So if any of you, I know there was just a couple of people who reached out around pregnancy stuff, but feel free to email me or ask more questions around that, because it's very specific to every person and every woman what their pregnancy is like. But those are my go-tos. So those are my 3 questions I got for this week. If anyone has any others, feel free to post them here, or you can email me for them to be answered next week. And you can just email me at jupiterslabyrinth@gmail.com, or you can direct message me here on Facebook or Instagram if you want them to be answered anonymously. But feel free. I'll hang out here for another minute or so to see if anyone's going to type anything in for the live feed. And no worries either way. Sometimes it's nice to go the anonymous route. It's nice to see the warmer weather hanging in here with us. I could do without the wind, but I won't complain. All right. Oh, and I should say my favorite supplement company is, I like Mega Foods still, even though they've changed their GMP practices a little bit, but they're generally good. Oh, I forgot to say I'm also taking a probiotic, but I that hasn't been different. And then the other supplement for the omegas and the cod liver oil, that is Nordic Naturals. And the reason I like those guys is because they are certified, ethical, and just like, what's the word? Just like potency and quality in this country and by European standards, which is awesome. So those are my two favorites there. For probiotics, Gyrodophilis is great. It's cheaper. There's a lot of really expensive probiotics out there with good reason. Megadophilis is another good one. I'm sorry, Megaflora. No, I made that up. Megadophilis. Actually, it might exist, but Megaflora is what I meant to say. And then if you're pregnant, specifically Femdophilis, which is the Jarrow, Jarrow company, which is good stuff. All right. Yes, and they're shellfish free. Omega, the Nordic Naturals, which is important for those of us with allergies. Yes, they're very good. All right, so if anyone has any other questions or comments or wants clarification on what I've already talked about, please go ahead and type me a little note. Otherwise, I only got those 3 questions this week, so I'll just hang out for another minute, and I'll just wait to hear from you guys next week. But you just let me know. Well, thank you everyone who did stick around to join me, and feel free again to post questions here. I can always pick up on them later and answer next week, or email me at jupiterslabyrinth@gmail.com, or you can DM me here on Facebook or Instagram. And otherwise, I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day, and I will connect with you again next week. All right. Thank you, everyone.